And I know I had a lot of requests. I got a lot of messages that since we did an analysis on the letter from Ami Bensouda's lawyers, the cease and desist letter, that it would just be fair and a logical thing to do to look at the letter and the response to the memo that emanated from something I can't read that. The memo that emanated from the chairperson of the Janneh Commission, Surahata Janneh, basically, of course, we didn't see that letter. We have not seen that. Well, I have not seen that letter, but based on the response, the very thorough and substantive response from Alhaji Kurang, one can deduce from that letter exactly what the original memo, the contents of the original memo, because he was very thorough in addressing the issues that were raised in that letter, and it was systematically and strategically responded to. So it wasn't just like a defense, it was a substantive rebuttal of every issue that was raised in that letter. So even though we haven't seen that letter, we haven't seen that letter, but it's quite it's not difficult to really, let me just turn this camera a bit. It's not difficult to really really figure out exactly what the contents were. And when I saw that letter, I thought that was a brilliant letter. It was a very solid rebuttal. Very solid rebuttal. That's the difference between, legally speaking, there's a difference between responding to a letter and a rebuttal. When you rebut a letter, you go into the heart of the issues that were raised. You go into the substantive issues raised, and what you try to do is to offer clarity and explanation for the issues that were raised in that original letter. And sometimes these issues are raised, and even though it seems to be like a memo, but most of the time it subconsciously appears, seemingly as if they're allegations that you have to respond to. And administratively, especially when you deal with such correspondences within the realm of administration and of course public service, these letters could easily metamorphose into allegations that can be taken seriously, and sometimes it has legal ramifications, and I would dare say sometimes it does have criminal elements in them, because it could easily attract a criminal complaint filed on the allegations or issues raised in that letter. So substantively, I want us to look at that letter, and I think Omar is going to be joining me. Omar, if you're ready, I'm set. I'm trying to print the letter out. Let me see if I can do that. I'm just trying to print it out because it's very small print. My eyes are not very the best, and it was so difficult for me to actually it was very difficult for me to read the letter. I had to be going up and down and stuff, but eventually I read it. It was a very good, give credit, give honor to whom honor is due. It was a very good letter. But that's what I want to look at today. That's what substantively, that's the reason for this live video, to just look at the letter, do a thorough and objective analysis, unbiased as always, on the contents of that letter, and try to contextualize everything that's going on at the moment, especially with the issues raised on the Janneh Commission and the handling of the former president's assets and the way and manner it was disposed of. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. I think Omar is set. So I'll just add Omar on. Yeah. It's very windy out here. So if you can hear me, can you just let me know that you're hearing me clearly and I'm loud and I'm very audible? I'll be very grateful for that. This man is amazing. Thank you, Bakari. Thank you. I don't have to print this. I don't have to print the letter again anymore. Bakari has just sent me the letter. I've got it on my phone, and this is fine. Omar, what's happening, man? It just keeps going on and on. I don't know if it's you or me, but I've got quite a good reception. So I don't know if it's me or you. Dr. Omar
Boss,
Malmo.
boss, what's going on?
Nothing much. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm all right. It's another day, you know.
Sorry for my
Around the
crazy hairdo. I'm
looks good, man.
try not to look at it. Try not to look at it.
What I do now is once in a while I just stand by the mirror and just save off everything, and I look like a little recruit. It is what it is, man. There is no time. Well, how are things going on?
Everything is everything is good. Everything is going on fine. I'm just listening. A friend of mine sent me a document. She wants me to edit a document for her. So she said she sent the document, and then I realized that I got a message and it says message deleted. So I sent her a message. I'm like, what did you delete? And she just sent me a voice message that's cracking me up. She's like, I know you. I saw a mistake there, and I don't want you to call me stupid, so I quickly deleted it.
Okay.
That's why I'm laughing. All right, man. Let's take this away. Let's take this away, man. We've got this. We've got this letter. We've got this letter, and uh, yes. So we've got this letter from Alaji, and obviously, initially when I saw that, because I think one of his followers actually tagged me on you saw that, yeah, tagged me on the letter, and
He actually tagged us. He's
yeah, is it Suleiman something? Suleiman Marena?
Suleiman was with us at the
Oh,
UTG. He was an accountancy student, quite a very progressive young man. But of course, he's on the side of Alaji on this case. But we're trying to be very impartial in it, and then we give a fair and balanced analysis towards it. So it's important that he brought it to our attention, because we had done a discussion on the other side of it, where a document was sent to him with regards to either going to court or whatever. So if he had a particular document sent to the commission back then, it's important that he brought it out, and it's important that he brought it to our attention. So that's quite fair and balanced.
Very fair.
It's good that we will have this conversation around that.
Very fair. Very fair. Very fair. Very fair. So basically, what's your take? Do you wanna open up and let's start? And we could just ask the audience if they could share, if everybody that's watching could share this live, so it will get to, I think some of this discussion is right to get to the right people, so that the conversation is is well received, and in a manner that's open, fair, and transparent. Somebody's sending a request. Is that you, Omar? Oh, you went off. What happened?
I don't know. All of a sudden, I probably just kicked me out. Yes. But to start with, I have a few things and a few observations that I just first want to put across. Now, comparatively, we've seen that, and in context, of course, Kurang had been saying a lot about not the commission in its entirety, but about Ami Bensouda. And evidently, either directly or indirectly, we know whenever he writes about, her, we know he's referring to this particular person. But what is evident in Kurang's document that we just read, we actually saw, or that actually surfaces in the public domain, is that there exists, animosity between the commissioners plus the councils against the secretariat. There was that animosity between the secretariat and the commission. So that means there was no, cordial working relationship among these people at one point. There were allegations and counter-allegations to a point that people were scrutinizing each other towards $200 and how they were being spent. But a couple of things I want to look at from Kurang's document. There are professional undertakings within the document, and also there are injections of, our social, concepts into it. So oftentimes there is this problem with Gambians that we cannot distinguish our professional life from our social, social cultures. Now, in the document, first I will look at it from what I think there are issues, or that I have issues with in the document.
Before delving into the document, can we look at the foundation of the document?
Go back.
So I'll pose questions to you and you'll answer. I just want to see if you and I are thinking in the same line.
Right.
Now, this document is over 7 years old. Are you aware?
Right.
Now, this document has never seen the light of day.
No.
You're aware?
Yeah.
So just like you rightly pointed out, for the entirety of the 7 years or plus 7 years that Kurang has been making, passing comments, of course, it's well known and well founded who those comments were attributed to, but he never came out with this letter. Now, the basis of this letter coming out, what I told you when we had the first from the previous Facebook Live, were allegations that were referred to in that cease and desist letter. But even though you mentioned, if you remembered when you and I had a bit of a tussle when you said these were her words, and I said no, these were authentic things because she was making reference to documents on file in the commission. So what this letter is now showing is that the allegations raised in the cease and desist letter as something substantial, that it came out. It might not be true, but it was something that happened. It occurred during the subsistence of that commission. And basically what we're seeing now, it's a whole a pathway that's being created now. So you could tell that there are allegations towards the former lead counsel. These allegations were not addressed in the cease and desist letter substantively. And in that cease and desist letter, there were also allegations made against Kurang. But what Kurang has done now is not to address the allegations, but share with the public a response to those allegations substantively in the context by which it happened at the time. And the reason why you and I are here basically is because it's apt, it's contextualized with the whole discussion that's going on. And we don't have to go back to the allegations raised. All we have to do is look at his response, and that would inform our decision and our mindset as to the basis of the allegations, whether it was substantiated, whether it was well intended, or whether it had a subtle bit of malice attached to those allegations. Because even though we got the side of the memo that was sent to him by virtue of what was raised in the cease and desist letter, now we've got a response from Kurang, which gives a balanced overview of the entire correspondence back and forth. But what we haven't seen, or what I feel based on the letter and based on everything that followed with his resignation or firing or whatever, I am tempted to say that his rebuttal to that initial memo was so well grounded that it did not amount to a disciplinary proceedings against him. I believe there were no further investigations against him. And I also believe that his rebuttal did not allow for the festering of the initial allegations. It died right there and then. And this tells you one thing, that if the allegations were true and it could be substantiated, then it wouldn't have ended there. He would have been penalized. He was a public servant by virtue of him serving as a secretary of the commission. I mean, and he was grounded by law, and something would have been done. Something should have been done. And if nothing was done, then we are now coming into a really, I don't want to get there. I'll leave that for later, but you take it on.
So thank you. Thank you very much. Like, of course, you did just put us through, and that's, quite clear. Now, this is exactly what I said the other day. What was contained in that document at that point in time was a document from, Ame Bensouda and our councils. So I wouldn't at the time subscribe it to probably what was coming from the commission. Even though it made references to documents from the commission, it is important that this document came out, and it evidently is clear to us that there were issues or allegations against Kurang while he was serving in the commission. Now, why didn't this allegation go further? Probably Kurang's rebuttals in that document that looked very sharp and very, apt, really kind of died or killed the entire, allegations or queries against him, right? Now, if Kurang's rebuttals in 2018 had actually, incinerated or probably put him out of, any potential wrongdoings, it's surfacing now to the public domain to suggest that he was doing, things that were not right. And then his rebuttal suggested that probably after that, the commission did not do anything else to punish Kurang. That means Kurang has cleared himself in that document that I have not done anything wrong. However, what we did not get up to this date is that after Kurang responded to the commission in that manner, what did the commission do? It will be important for us to know, was Kurang punished on the basis of, the allegations and his rebuttals to the commission? And of course, what did the commission do thereafter? But what Batambedu told us that is that the commissioners said they can no longer work with Kurang. Now, this point is very important for us to put into context. If the commissioners said they can no longer work with Kurang, after reading this document from Kurang, you can basically tell that Kurang had actually pinched, a very important part of the commissioners. Because if you are querying Kurang up to the level of asking him about a $200, that he put up a very, very strong rebuttal in the way he did, then something was really within the commission, that is either people were conniving against a particular person, or they believe that a particular person was doing something wrong, and then he sends his rebuttal. We need to know still what the commission did after Kurang's rebuttal, which we do not know. But what I want to put in place here is that now, if Kurang was not punished, which is not clear to us yet, because the commissioners are not speaking, they did not say anything, and Kurang did not produce any document to say, or he did not go further to say, I was not punished after I sent this to the commission. Now, that is still a question that we did not have answers to. But if Kurang was not, let's assume Kurang was not punished, then, having that in the, whatever terminology people call it legally, in the deceased or whatever document that, was sent by Ami Bensouda's lawyers, definitely would not be necessary to put that point or those points in there, in the sense that if the commission felt that, okay, Kurang has, send a rebuttal that cleared him from this particular case, why does he feel the need to still re-mention some of those things in the document they sent to Kurang? Now, this document was in the public domain to actually put to us that maybe Kurang was doing some illegal activities or doing things that were quite fraudulent. But in his rebuttal, he cleared out everything that had happened and why they happened that way and what the justifications were. Now, it is important for us to know, after Kurang giving his justifications, what did the commission do? If the commission did nothing and actually allowed that case to just, relax and then life goes on, then it is quite, I would consider, the document that was sent to him recently that mentioned some of those things to be unfair. It's just like, for instance, you take me to court, and then we went to court, and it clearly says that, okay, everything that I am accused of really, it's not substantiated, and it's justified that I could do whatever I had done. And then after that, you still want to bring it when we have, animosities to say, oh, you did this and that, when I was probably cleared by the commission. So we want to know, did the commission just let it slide, or did the commission just let Kurang be and then use another, approach to say we can no longer work with him? Because if you read what Kurang sent to the commission, honestly, that is enough to say work had turned into a bad blood in that document, because explicitly he told a few things to the commission, which I want to really focus on, and which I think has, in one way or another, a connection to why we are where we are today. Kurang in the document made mention that there is, clause 4 of the, vehicle order that gave the secretary the supervisory role to actually oversee the sales. So clearly, what I asked Kurang when he was actually, agitating or probably provoking me or insulting me, it simply answered in this part. That means Kurang was not selling on his own accord. That means part of, the document that the commission would have developed, or the context in which they think they have the powers of the, High Court, and they could make interim orders. There was an order, and in clause 4 of that order, in the vehicle order, gave Kurang, or they explicitly mentioned that the secretary will oversee the sales of these vehicles. So that means Kurang was working in accordance to the order that the commission had actually put up. So Kurang, in this case, would definitely, I wouldn't think that, he would be in any trouble in that regard, because it's the commission that had made an interim order, and of course has explicitly put in, clause 4 of that particular vehicular order that the secretary should actually, supervise the sales of these vehicles. But where I have a problem with, Kurang's document is that he went further to say there was this particular day that he actually gave 8 people about an amount of 8,000, compensating them for the good work. No, you are paid salaries. You are not there to compensate anybody. Now, these are Gambian gestures that we do, which are completely out of bound for our professional work. You have a TOR to follow. Those monies belongs to the Gambians, and the people who were working with you are paid salaries for those services, unless and until they were doing an overtime, and the commission has established a particular rule on how to pay people on overtime. But out of your own magnanimity, you don't give monies that do not belong to you. And you do not give people like an amount up to 8,000 because you think, oh, they've done a good job. Now, he said he did that out of his own guess, probably because he's the secretary to commission, but the secretary
Can
has
you read
no
that
right
part?
whatsoever.
Can you read that part? Because I feel you're missing something on that part. Can you just read it out? That particular part?
I'm not rightly in front of the document.
Okay, carry on, and I'll see if I can pull it up.
Right? So if you can pull the document up, you would
carry on. I'll see if I can pull it up.
That is a point about giving money to other people.
Yeah, I know. I saw it.
And also there is something on miscellaneous.
But then exactly? So that was what I was saying. If you go back and look at the legal definition of miscellaneous, what that basically means is like a sum of money given to you to use at your discretion for incidentals, and that's why it's called miscellaneous. These are things. Yeah. So these are yes. So these are things that ordinarily you give that person as long as they can retire, as long as they can adequately. That's what the financial regulations say. As long as they can substantively and adequately retire whatever was used for miscellaneous, things that were not budgeted for. And you could trace. If you see Kurang's letter, he mentioned traceability. These are individuals. So I want to look. That's why I say let's look at that paragraph carefully, because I don't think these were individuals that were working with the commission. Because from what he said there was no way they could pay them overtime, because I don't think overtime was prescribed for. And what he did say is after the sale, after bringing in
after a success,
after a success, to motivate them. I mean, he gave them each. It wasn't one person. He gave them each $1,000.
Right.
And what Kurang tried to do, even though I understand where you're coming from, but if you, in quantitative method, if we want to look at this mathematically, like figuratively, if you look at 9 million or 10 point something million, initially he said he had already banked at the central bank over $9 million.
Yep.
8,000 of 9 million is not even 1%. It's not even 0.4% of the amount. And what he is saying is, whilst the commissioners, whilst other staff members of the commission had other perks and privileges that came with their office, these lower end staff who were in the hinterland of the Gambia, in the bushes, trying to sell, and not only that, he also mentioned that they registered success beyond the baseline price. Let's not forget that. So where a tractor, for example, was pegged at 75,000, they were able to sell at $1 point something million, right? Now, this was not 100% increase in profit. This was like over 1,000%. And under miscellaneous, he could adequately justify, as long as he could substantiate the rationale for giving these staff who probably maybe worked till late into the night, $1,000 each. And that is why he didn't stop at that. He didn't stop at that. He compared and tried to draw a comparative analysis from what he did and what the commissioners did with regards to their staff, security guards, and things like that. So he said, even though this and this and this, but as the secretary to the commission, having full oversight authority over the sale and having a budget line of a miscellaneous provision, he could use his initiative to do that as long as it could be justified. That is how I saw it.
Yeah,
but you carry on, and I'll try to read the paragraph.
So in that aspect, what I'm trying to put across is, like, professionally and socially, what he did was quite a very good magnanimity and quite socially justifiable in the context that, you know what, people overworked, and you basically can actually, give them a couple of, whatever, and that is quite easy to do. But in a professional setting, whereas you are asked to sell and these people that are working with you are on a fixed salary or whatsoever, miscellaneous might be probably specific needs within the commission, but not like you're paying people. But if you're giving people extra amounts that is justifiable, that I would basically consider that, okay, what he did in the context of, trying to motivate these people was right. But if the commission tries to query it, then that is also another whole ball game. Did he have the right to give money to other people who were actually on salary? If the commissioners are doing it and then it's trying to, bring in a comparative analysis, that means something exists within the commission that is bringing about bad blood when it comes to money. But also the good thing is that you see that the commission or commissioners were trying to query, Mamadi Kurang up to the level of asking him about a $200. Now, in our context, we will think that, man, why would you ask me about a $200? But every penny should be accountable, no matter what. But in that regard, what I think Kurang did, very well on is that he tells the people the reason why he did 1, 2, and 3. Either it is right or wrong, that is dependent on what exists within the framework of the commission. Now, the second point that I had an issue with, which I think was a compelling...
Sorry, Omar. Bakari, I can see you're watching. So the letter that Bakari sent me was actually the chairman's letter to Kurang.
Okay.
So, Bakari, is it possible? Bakari, is it possible to send me Kurang's letter response rebuttal to the chairman? Is that possible, Bakari? If you are watching, can you just send me that? So now we've got the letter to Kurang.
Mm-hmm.
We've got it. I'll share it with you now.
All right.
But carry on. Sorry.
So what I have a problem with in Kurang's document is that he said the commissioners were losing sight of their primary mandate, which is chasing after Jammeh's billions. Chasing after Jammeh's billions. Indeed, they chased Jammeh's billions. These people were not investigating to bring about impartial justice to Jammeh and his assets and his methods or ways of acquiring them. They were chasing after Jammeh's billions. Now, this language probably is just the language and the way people put it, and it might not, in context, we understand it differently and we interpret it differently, or probably we interpret it in the way we want to interpret it. But in my understanding of it, chasing after Jammeh's billions was not the primary responsibility of the commission. The commission was supposed to establish truth and, of course, investigate the way Janneh acquired all of his wealth. Either some of the wealth were acquired legally and if some were actually acquired fraudulently. But if you put everything together and said you were supposed to be chasing after Janneh's billions and they're losing sight of that and asking you about a $200 here and there, that means there was a vendetta between the secretariat and, of course, the commissioners. And Kurang explicitly told us that the commissioners and their security guards here and there were doing this and that, but they would not allow me to even give a little token to my people who were supporting. So that means explicitly these things were not included in the activities of the commission. In one way or another, there was that animosity between the secretariat and the commissioners. And it did not stop at the commissioners. It looks like the councils were on the side of the commissioners against the secretariat or probably against one person, Alaji Mamadi Kurang. Now, what I want to understand is the commission was not there to chase after the millions or the billions, according to them. The commission was there to establish an impartial investigation on, Yahya Jammeh's rule and how he acquired his wealth. So if they went on to just chase after the millions, that is why they explicitly told us that Janneh never owned anything legally. That means everything he had owned was owned illegally. And again, back to the question that I asked Kurang, did you have the mandate whatsoever to sell this asset? It is justified that the commission, in its interim orders, gave Kurang the power as the secretary to play a supervisory role in the sale of these activities. Now, the sale of these, vehicular, either vehicles and cattle here and there. But of course, Kurang, out of his own gesture, would have given at least 8,000 would be really miscellaneous. That wouldn't. But then, how was it spent? It was giving to individuals for actually getting a result beyond what was expected, which is quite justifiable. But then, if the commissioners raised the question, on what basis did they raise these questions? And as well, Kurang responding to the chairman, I think that's the chairman of the commission. He went beyond just the professional level, brings about their personal relationship. For instance, if you and I work together in a professional setting, we have an existing interpersonal relationship beyond work, whatever. I wouldn't say, Melville, you are my friend here and there. I would explicitly respond to the queries that you might have raised without injecting any social relations in it. And I saw an injection of social relations. I call you father, or I call you dad, or whatsoever, which in one way or another shouldn't have any impact in a way to an independent or probably impartial query into the activities that were done in the commission. But what I want to understand is, why did Ami Bensouda feel the need to bring back this particular incident or incidents or queries that the commission would have put to Kurang, and Kurang had given his rebuttals, and we did not know going forward what the commission had done. If the commission had actually reprimanded Kurang for those activities and felt that Kurang had done something wrong, then it will be important that Ami could raise them. But if the commission did not do anything and probably let it relax in the pretext that probably this guy, what he did is justified, like in my belief, I think probably what Kurang did is justified, even though I wouldn't give monies to people that do not belong to me. Even if I felt that they did something.
Can we address that issue before we move? I've just gotten that particular paragraph.
Okay, can you read through the paragraph?
It says 1,000 allowance paid to the personnel. Again, please note that the $1,000 was only paid for 4 days of sale. $0 was paid for the preceding 3 days of tagging and valuation. Prior approval or the basis used to determine this. The commissioners are fully in receipt of my insistence on this amount since the livestock tagging. So that sentence is very clear.
So the commissioners are aware of his insistence. Was it accepted by the commission? Go ahead.
No, hang on. Let me just finish. I just wanted you to get that point.
I got it.
So the commissioners are fully in receipt of my insistence on this amount since the livestock tagging. In an exercise in which the lives of men were threatened for touching ex-president's assets, this was a reasonable amount and a decision to keep them motivated to work without overtime pay while placing in government coffers more than $10 million. So basically, looking at it from a bureaucratic angle, yes, approval should have been sought
Right.
from the commissioners before even $1 can be paid.
This is my point.
Raising 20 billion
It's not just
does not mean
right.
that $1 should be given out.
Right.
But again, what we have to look at is the mandate of Kurang to oversee the sales.
And the context in which they define their miscellaneous, because if the miscellaneous is any extra spending, and he could basically, out of his discretion, do that, then I don't see anything wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my point exactly. And it seemed to me...
there is this thing about Gambia. It's very, you can bring people to work in your compound and they charge you, let's say, $10,000. But after the work, you are pleased and you feel like, you know what, they've done so much of a good work.
Yeah, so
and
I think it was
an extra $20.
I think it was
shouldn't be a problem. But in a professional setting, when people are after you, they could make a whole big issue out of that.
Yeah, but then
knowing our social settings and how we professionally balance sociology and of course professional work, this shouldn't actually be an issue. But whereas it is queried, then if you don't have a justification for it, it's a problem.
Yeah, but he justified it. And what I'm saying is if it was an issue that warranted an action, it should have been done.
Right.
So in as much as we could have a debate on the the propriety of that, but the fact is nothing was done. He was asked to reimburse. I'm assuming he was asked to reimburse the $8,000. It was justified, so it's a non-starter for me.
Now, my question to you is: now that appears to be the commission never took any other action, and Kurang has rebutted every query that was sent to them, why was it important to mention this in the document sent to him by Amir Bensouda's counsels?
Okay, so that for me, from my point of view, I think that like we addressed when we had this discussion the last time. The letter from Amir Bensouda's lawyers to Kurang was not meant for Kurang alone.
Exactly.
Okay, it was meant for Kurang, but it was also meant for the Gambian public. And the objective of inserting those allegations that were raised in the commission was to show that Kurang himself was not a stickler for the rules and regulations set by the commission as he wants us to feel. That was the purpose of it. So like you and I are saying now, like you rightly said, that regardless of whatever amount raised, whether it is $1 or 1 billion, the answer is if there was no prior approval, you had no right to dish out government funds to individuals based on your own whims and caprices. This is what she was trying to raise. And if you understand how litigation works, when it comes to that issue, you and I might look at it like that. Okay, but it's just 1,000, like I raised, like I said, over $1 billion. But you know that stealing 1,000 from Walmart or Tesco is as good as stealing an apple from Tesco. It's theft, period. So the rationale for inserting that in there is to show that this guy had an issue with me because the commission flagged some of his dealings and activities. But there's something also in Kurang's letter that I found, if I could have spoken to Kurang, I would have asked him these questions. Because like I said, now I've seen the letter from the chair, and the chair mentioned, which rightly so, it would be flagged up in any institution. Let's be honest and sincere. There were no receipts. There were no receipts attached. But in his rebuttal, he attached the receipts. Are you getting me?
Yes.
At the time that the memo came from the commission, my belief, just like Kurang, because Kurang addressed this letter. So if we're analyzing this letter, we have to be absolutely objective. and be fair and honest, Kurang's rebuttal was solid, very solid.
Yep.
And I can tell you that if Kurang had submitted receipts prior, he would have made reference to it.
Yep.
He would have absolutely said, Mr. Chairman, I reference, just like he said, he referenced raising the issue of the $1,000. Okay?
Yep.
But in his letter, in the entirety of his letter, there was no reference of submitting any receipts. So if you look at it again from another angle, the issues raised from I'm trying to read Bakari's.
Which Bakari is that?
Yeah, so that's I'm losing my train of thought because I'm trying to
if you follow trends on the messaging, you basically lose attention as per what's going on. But yeah.
No. You see, Bakari, I never said no. You see this, Bakari. I think you missed that. You missed that clearly, because I never said that he was a thief or that he stole. That's not what I said. What I did say was I was giving an analogy, okay, and I gave a hypothetical scenario of somebody going into Tesco and stealing £1,000, vis-a-vis a person going into Tesco and stealing an apple. And what I did say is that they were both theft. So, Bakari, I want that to be clear because I don't want to be misinterpreted. So I never suggested.
The reason why you're saying that is that no matter the amount of money you raise for the country, you cannot remove a penny from it without having the right authority telling you can.
So
you
regardless,
to remove, even if you get 2 billion for the Gambia, you had no right whatsoever to remove the fallacy from it.
To give anyone.
That's
what we're trying to establish.
He stole the money whatsoever. No.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to establish, basically. So going back to the rationale for inserting these things there, because if at all this matter goes to court, it's an issue of credibility. What is fact and what is fiction? That is
what I don't understand legally in this context now, because initially I said if what they are alleging Kurang becomes something that is not or is unfounded, he could actually, go to court and also say this is defamatory. But in this case now, I understand that these things that are pointed out to him in the document sent by the councils of Ami Bensouda is something that had happened in the commission, but Kurang had justified it in a way, because we still do not know if the commission actually, did something or took some actions against him. But whereas I assume no action was taken against him in this respect, how do you put this document in the public light in trying to make it look like, the guy was doing some fraudulent activities, that the commission actually got a rebuttal as for why that was done, and then all his rebuttals were considered justifiable? Then that claim of, him doing something wrong was completely neutralized. Why did you put it out there? And if you put it out there, can it equate?
No, but you have to understand.
Defamatory, whatever?
Yeah, but you have to understand, Ami Bensouda's suit or prospective suit or claim for defamation is not the Janneh Commission.
Yeah.
So that has to be clearly distinguished. What Ami Bensouda is doing, Ami Bensouda is not speaking on behalf of the commission.
I'm speaking about the allegation that she put on.
Yeah. That's what I want to. You asked the rationale, right?
So now, if she put up that kind of queries against Kurang in her document that you did this, you did that in the commission, now which looks like something that the commission had queried Kurang about. So that means whatever she said that, Kurang, you did this and did that, either substantiated or not, but it looks like it was something that the commission had an issue with Kurang about, and they actually wrote to Kurang. But Kurang responded to justify that, and that looks like it was justified, and it is no longer considered something that Kurang did wrong. But then, I mean, Bensouda, after 7 years, felt that she could still mention that in her document, and that gives a public opinion that, oh, maybe Kurang was doing something fraudulent. But Kurang's response 7 years ago indicated that, of course, the commission had asked me questions in relation to these particular things that this lady is mentioning, but I had rebutted them to a fact that the commission realized that what they were trying to put up on me seems to be something that is non-existent and is quite neutralized. So something that was neutralized 7 years ago, if you raise it as if you were doing this, you were doing that, could Kurang say that, I mean,
No,
Bensouda is alleging me?
that is you and I. That is you and I coming to that conclusion.
Yeah.
But then if you go one step beyond that, you see, you have to look at things holistically. So Kurang offered a rebuttal.
Yeah.
But immediately after the rebuttal, or I think just prior to the rebuttal, there was an instruction for him to stop sale.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this letter that I've just seen now from Bakari, a letter from the chairman is raising an issue that why did Kurang bank, because I'm sure he attached the bank statement because he made reference to the bank statement. Why did you bank these amounts of money 5 days after you should have? 5 days after you received the instruction to stop sale. Okay? And with Kurang's response as well, if you can recollect, he did mention that because some of the amounts were in checks, some people promised to come and pay after. You saw that, and some were in foreign currency. Now, you and I, looking at things from our vantage point of view, are basically saying that nothing was done. Okay? But subsequent to this memo, there was an interaction where I feel personally that the commissioners did not take lightly to certain things that was mentioned in the rebuttal by Kurang.
Yeah.
So, for example, Kurang deviated a bit by doing oops. My child, there's so much wind. It's just that my phone was going to fall off.
Sorry about that.
No, it's me. I have to wait. Let me do this. Whoa. Shoot. Okay. So basically, what Kurang did was, for example, when he said to them, "But you're having $3,000 a day for food, but you find it unjustifiable that I'm giving somebody $300 or something for food." And he made a comparison that I love, where he said, "Are the stomachs different?" You see that?
I love Kurang's diction and how he actually approached that, and how he was
this was not addressing the issue, but he was also putting them. He was also getting them to do an introspection of themselves.
Yeah.
You understand?
Evaluate yourself.
To say that, but you're earning so much. You're earning so much, but yet still you're also claiming for incidentals, for out-of-pocket funds. You're claiming that you're receiving $10,000 fuel monthly. You're receiving $3,000 a day for food. That's $30,000 in a month, and you receive $10,000 fuel. That's $40,000, and you're just commuting from your home to work. So what he tried to do in that letter was to prick the conscience of the commissioners.
Yeah.
To say, hey, look, yes, I might have done it without your approval, but what I did is synonymous to good conscience. Good conscience.
Right.
So this is what I saw in the letter. And what I feel, I may be wrong, I was not there, but what I feel is that those words, those references in that letter cause a form of animosity to develop between the commissioners and Kurang, because he pricked their consciences.
When I was reading Kurang's rebuttal, I could see myself in this document, and I was like, this exactly speaks to the fact that if you want to question my conscience and credibility, what are you doing? Now, that actually will bring bad blood in a sense that you are doing all of these, taking all of these monies, and nobody's complaining. I am in the field, sometimes staying beyond normal work hours with these folks. And out of my own benevolence, I felt that, okay, maybe just 1,000. You're querying the 1,000, you're querying
But did
200. But then
not
you have
query,
thousands and thousands in your
but
pocket.
did not query the fact that I sold these things above the base price.
Right. So we can say legally you don't have a right to take a penny. But of course, other people who legalize all the monies they put in their pockets would still deny a common
No, but you
gambling of a
see,
single thousand.
like I
But
said, I disagree in a way. You see, it's like you see the law. The law is not interpreted in that way. There's always an exception. That's why you have murder and manslaughter. Both occasions the death of an individual.
right.
That's why you have provocation as a self-defense. That's why you have insanity as a defense.
But that also already tells us that the commission felt he was doing something wrong,
No, no,
and
no,
his
no. I'm just saying. No,
his rebuttals, his rebuttals cleared it out.
yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say. That yes, you can look at it substantively. That yes, he should have followed the financial regulations, right? But then if you look at it again, I mean, if you were to take Kurang to court, I don't think any conscious, court would dispensing justice equitably and fairly would give him some sort of a custodial sentence or even fine him for such magnanimity.
But
Because
if somebody sends you that report, that response or that rebuttal, honestly, looking at that person every day in that workplace, now I
yeah,
understand why the commissioner said we can no longer work with this person.
you know.
That letter was so loaded, and of course the wordings were so consciously put together, and at some point it was even
So
questioning the credibility and the
so let
conscience
me
of the
tell
commissioners.
you something else about that letter. The letter gives context. You see, when I listened to Batambedo on For the People by the People show, he mentioned clearly, distinctively, he said that he tried to remedy the situation between Ami Bensouda and Kurang. And he said what he tried to do was to speak to the commissioners. And all of them said they wouldn't want to work with Kurang. You remember that?
Of course, yes.
Now, when you read the letter emanating from Ami Bensouda's lawyers, that was also raised. Now, what this letter has done, what Kurang's rebuttal has done, is to give you context for the foundational basis why these individuals said they couldn't
That
work
they
with
can no
Kurang.
longer work. Right.
Because
So,
initially, what we were thinking is that they didn't want to work with Kurang because they were siding with the League Council. But that is not the case. The reason they don't want to work with Kurang is because Kurang has pricked the deepest part of their consciences.
yeah.
So when you look at this in context, it tells you that, and this is why we will get to that part, that whatever happened between Kurang and the League Council, there is no way it is attributable to the actions of the commission. This was something that happened between them, and they do have a solid grievance against each other. You cannot dismiss it.
Again, that brings in Batambedo into the equation. Now, Kurang has sent these rebuttals to the commissioners, and which questions their conscience and what they were doing within the commission. That has brought about animosity. And Kurang then wrote to the office of the president about something he felt was not right and was political interference in the sales of assets of the former president. But then Batambedo said in his whatever investigation, he had called Kurang to give, probably evidences. But Kurang does not need to give Batambedo any evidence, because in Ahmed Bensouda's document, it is explicitly clear that the office of the president has given them instruction to stop the sales on the
But wait, Omar, wait. Did you pay attention to that part? Did you pay attention to that part? Just repeat what you just said and tell me what comes to mind. Repeat what you just said. Your last sentence.
You know, when you stop me in the middle of it, then I'm kind of lost.
No,
What
I'll tell you.
exactly is that?
I'll juggle your memory. What you
Okay,
just said was they receive instructions from
right.
State House.
So,
What comes to your mind?
so what came to my mind is basically government interference in the process of the
But
commission.
Bedu on the For the People by the People show said that the commission was independent and there was no way that government could interfere.
That is why I am bringing Tambedu into the equation, that this is not a credible and a
So
person who
what
was
that
doing justice to our
tells you,
justice
so what
system.
that tells you is Tambedu lied
Evidently,
publicly.
yes.
Publicly, he lied when he went on For the People by the People show
And
because
equally
he said
sided.
and he was trying to talk, to speak to the panelists to tell them that they don't understand, that Gambians don't understand that the commission was highly independent and Gambia is not a dictator. Gambia is not under dictatorship, and there was no way that him, Batambedu, or the president could be interfering in the work of the commission. But in this letter now that we are seeing, it is specific, it is clearly stated that the instructions to stop the sale came from the office of the president. And what that tells you, it was an executive interference from
Certainly.
the president or the executive in the work of the commission. So what
And
that
then,
tells you, that alone, you don't need anything else. That alone renders the commission's work and activities null and void, because it means there was political interference in the dispensation of the activities and TOR of the commission, and the commission was not as independent as it should be. And rather than it being a fact-finding mission to establish what Janneh owned, what belonged to the state, they were meddling into the affairs of Janneh. And that is why I keep insisting that having the legal authority to make interim orders does not equal to making orders that are permanent and eternal.
Again, that brings to mind that Kurang was fighting with multiple forces at one time. So Kurang, I would see him in this case as the victim of all of these, stakeholders. First, when the office of the president tried to interfere in the activities of the commission, Kurang actually was the one vehemently against that. Against what? He needed to continue the sales because stopping the sales was considered to be political interference. So already Kurang is questioning what the office of the president was trying to do. One. Two, the commission tried to query him, and Kurang rebutted everything they had said, that if you think what I'm doing is not best practice, what are you doing? And of course, I did this out of good faith, and I did not put the monies in my pocket. It was these 8 people giving this and this, and all other queries that the commission put up, Kurang successfully rebutted them, that I think. Now, if Kurang rebutted everything the commission tried to query him on, and of course went on to actually put that question on the conscience of the commissioners, already those people will have that guilt that this person is actually questioning us and we can no longer work with him. Of course, office of the president want them to stop the sale. The same Kurang stand firm to say that we are not going to accept political interference here, and wrote to the office of the president. So animosity is coming from both angles, from the commissioners whom he put in their place, and of course office of the president that tried to interfere, and he tried to say, look, I am the secretary here. What you are doing is equivalent to political interference. Of course, another animosity will come from that angle. And Batambedu, being the person in between, what did he do? He invited the commissioners to his office, did not ask them about these letters, but only asked them about work environment with Kurang. And all they could say is, we can no longer work with this man.
If you look at Kurang's letter, they were copied to Batambedu as the Minister of Justice.
And Batambedu did not use this letter to
and
say,
the letter,
okay, commissioners and
the letter was also copied to the office of the president.
Right. So that means both parties were quite well aware of what was going on.
Now,
and they did not play fairly to Kurang. All they did was to invite the commissioners, and they said, we can no longer work with this person. And they used that as a justification to say, we rather lose Kurang than lose all these people. But you rather keep a single honest man than keep all these folks who are trying to play double standards or trying to actually do things that were dubious to the commission.
The question on my mind is, was the lead counsel, as an advisor, as the legal advisor to the commission, could she not have been in a position to advise the commission of political interference in the commission's work when they received instructions to stop the sale?
She should have. In my view, she should have. But of course, why did it come from Kurang? The chairman could have done that. The lead counsel could have advised the chairman on that. Of course, any other person within the commission who feels that could have advised the chairman that this is political interference. The chairman could have advised himself, knowing that this is a professional person who had worked in professional life for so long, could have told government what you are doing is political interference. Let us work independently. But they did not do that. They instructed Kurang to stop, and Kurang actually told them that the reason why you're putting me to stop is equivalent to political interference.
Okay, but let's
and
flip
I think
it. Let's flip it. Let's flip
right.
it. Let's flip that a bit. Let's flip it. I like to be the devil's advocate. Let's flip it. Now, you see, sometimes the way I think it's crazy. But let's flip it. Let's flip it. Let's flip it. What the executive can say, I'm just saying this now because trust me, put it on record, write it somewhere. Because what they would say, I'm telling you what they would say now. They've never said it. I'm on record to say that they've never said it.
Yeah.
No one in the executive have said this. What Dr. Cisse said on Coffee Time with Peter Gomez was that this is not a dictatorship, and that the commission was independent, and that the president was not meddling in the affairs of the commission. He said that loud and clear. But I'll tell you something, and I'm saying this for the first time, and I've not heard it anywhere. If it comes to the crunch, I'll tell you what is going to happen. They will use that as a basis, that interference, to say that it was not interference, but it was because they understood that the commission did not have a mandate to sell, and that they gave instructions for the commission to stop selling because it was not within their mandate. Bank what I've just said.
But also, the commission can justify that with the letter that they would have sent to the commission to stop the sales. Because if they think it was on the matters of law, they would have referenced that on the basis of this legality. But you know that they also went on to say, stop the sales because consider what? Consider, the poor neighboring communities. So that means they did not stop us on the basis of law that we don't have the mandate to do so. They stopped us because they want us to sell it to a certain kind of communities that probably in one way or another, are considered, vulnerable communities. So it also comes to the context of the letter or whatever documentation that the commission get that the office of the president would have sent to them to say, can you stop the sales? But in Ami's document, it explicitly said that they stopped us from the sales because they wanted us to consider vulnerable communities. So Kurang could also say that that is pure political interference, because how do you define a vulnerable community in the Gambia?
And how, not only that, but one, who set the yardsticks for a vulnerable community? That's the first thing. Secondly, what has vulnerable community got to do with the asset disposal of a person who's being investigated? Remember, their mandate was to investigate, to look into the financial dealings of former President Janneh and his associates. That was their mandate. The mandate was not to identify vulnerable communities.
But again, this brings the question here, because you and I agree that they did not have the mandate to sell. Now, if we read Kurang's document, there is a point that he mentioned, clause 4 of the vehicle order.
But
that means they
but that was the order, commission's order.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Yeah. So it was the commission's order, and in that order, they actually, mentioned that the secretary need to oversee the sales. Yeah. Now that means Kurang was acting on that order. Did the commission have the right to give that order? No. If you say no, that means Kurang in a way was not acting on his accord, because initially I was telling Kurang that you are wrong for doing that sale because you don't have the mandate to. But if the commission actually develop a document that kind of justifies that, to even put in orders and to even give Kurang the powers to do so, then that will not bounce on Kurang as an individual.
No. We never said that.
Initially I told Kurang, look, you don't have the right to
sell. But I've
now
said that today. I've said that today, and I still maintain that.
Yeah,
ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's a solid foundation in law.
That's what I'm saying. But then they've developed a whole document that is an order.
It's an order. It's an order. It's an interim order given.
That was the wrong order.
It's an interim order given, and we are saying that the commission does not have the powers to even issue such an order that goes beyond their mandate. Period. That order is null and void.
So who
Constitution?
For that?
The Constitution is very clear. Every other law, anything that goes against the dictate of the Constitution to the extent of its inconsistency is null and void.
So who bears the responsibility?
Hang on. The Constitution explicitly states that the commission has the power of a high court judge And in so far as it deals with issues of investigation, compelling of witnesses, okay, and making such interim orders within the confines of investigation. And like lawyer Lam and J. Dabo said on the For the People by the People show, their mandate was to preserve. And there was no basis for justification for the commission to say they cannot preserve tractors.
Most of tractors
Remember, this was 2018. Janneh had just left in January 2017. What could have possibly gone wrong with these tractors to a point that some of them were deemed to be scrap metals? And like you and I have rightly said, we all know who Janneh was. There was no way that Janneh was keeping scraps. His properties, his materials, his artifacts were top notch and they were well kept. Now, what is that? I mean, if you want to use the reasonable man's test, is it reasonable? Is it plausible? Is it possible for these tractors, these equipments, to have degenerated to a point that they have turned into scrap within that short period of time between 2017 January and 2018? That these orders were made? What was the rationale for selling? Why was there a rush to sell? Why was there a rush to dispose of Janneh's assets even before the commission concludes their work? Remember, the findings of the commission is not law. The findings of the commission is not authority. And that is why the findings of the commissions are called recommendations. These are recommendations. You recommend to the executive. The commission was formulated by powers vested on the president to set up a commission of inquiry. Now, when the commission does its work, when the commission does its findings, they make recommendations to the president based on facts. The commission can solely look at the facts vis-a-vis the law. What were the policies in place? What was the law? Where did Janneh go wrong? How were funds diverted? How were funds siphoned? How were funds stolen? That is looking at the law and looking at the facts. How would you establish that a fund was diverted? You look at the policy. You look at the financial regulations. You look at the law that governs those transactions. So you have to have the facts on one hand, and then you have the authority, you have the policy, you have the law in another hand. And what you do is do a comparative analysis of the facts and the law, and then make your conclusion. And based on your conclusion, you come with your recommendations. And when you make your recommendations, it is left for the president to accept those recommendations. And when he accepts those recommendations, that is when it becomes policy. And that is when a white paper is issued. So the commission had no business whatsoever to go into to meddle with the materials that belong to former President Janneh. Because until their recommendations are accepted by the executive or by the president, it is just a recommendation. For example, the Janneh Commission recommended that Sabali should not hold public office. The Janneh Commission recommended that Alhaji Ceesay should not hold public office. The president rejected it. So those recommendations are not law. Those recommendations are not policies. They are mere recommendations. I don't care if it comes in volumes or suitcases. They are recommendations. That is what the law says. And they should have stayed within the remit of the law. Make the recommendations and let the executive decide. That is what the law says. And this is why I had issues with other commissions. Because just because a commission has recommended, I've seen people make that argument that by and force the executive must follow the recommendations of the commission. That is not law. It is not done in England. It's not done in America. It's not done anywhere in the world. It is for the executive to accept the recommendations or not. And that is why if you are adversely mentioned in the commission, you have a right of appeal. If you're adversely mentioned, you have a right of appeal. Now, why would you have a right of appeal if the recommendations of the commission were cast on stone? even former President Janneh can exercise his constitutional right under the 1997 Constitution and challenge the adverse mention and findings on him at the Court of Appeal in the Gambia. Whether it will be accepted or not, that's a story for another day. But he's got that right. It is his constitutional right. And the commission's recommendations, whether based by facts or anything else, are recommendations. And I repeat, they are mere recommendations until it is translated into a government white paper. They remain a recommendation, and it could be rejected, it could be accepted, either in whole or in part.
Melville, now that explicitly we know that the government of the Gambia had, or by extension the office of the president, had interfered in the activities of the commission, as well as, the commission going beyond its mandate to go about selling Janneh's assets when they do not have the mandate to do so. And the entire country was quite silent and watching them do all those acts that were not in conformity with the law. Now they've established a parliamentary inquiry into checking, what had happened within the commission in terms of the sales here and there, and knowing fully well that the complicity goes beyond just within the commission and the sales of the assets, but it went all the way to the office of the president. Do you think a parliamentary inquiry of politicians would bring about anything positive to Gambians in the context of both, the politics of it and, of course, the legality of all the actions they might be taking now, and knowing fully well that the entire country was silent or, in a way, complicit to, the wrongs that the commission was doing, and nobody dares to tell what you're doing is wrong. And at the time, one raises a question that what you're doing is political interference. He ended up being booted out of the commission on the basis that the commissioners could no longer work with him, because now we know the reasons why they could no longer work with him, because the guy had sent them a rebuttal that if somebody sent to me, I will not come back to that job the next day, because the shame it will put on me would not give me that audacity to come back to that job. It's either that person leaves or I leave. Now, evidently, Kurang had brought in a very strong rebuttal to the commissioners that would, in my way, inform the decisions that Batamid and others took, because Bar's actions are now telling us that he sided with one aspect of it. That is, the commissioners saying, oh, we can no longer work with him. But they never brought these letters out that there was this existing animosity within the commission. So we would have suggested that maybe there was something going on, but what was it? We never know. But now we clearly can tell that the commissioners queried Kurang, and Kurang justified with rebuttals that really hit hard, and they decided to go to Batamid to say, we can no longer work with this person. And of course, what I do not understand is Kurang's rebuttals were directed to the commissioners. Why did you think the lead counsel equally said she can no longer work with Kurang? Because this Batambedu also said that the lead counsel and of course the commissioners all said they can no longer work with Kurang. But Kurang's rebuttal had no animosity whatsoever, had no mention of Ami Bensouda. It's actually talking about the commissioners, was responding to the commissioners. Where is the issue between Kurang and Ami Bensouda?
Okay. So basically, I think there's something missing.
Exactly. That is still a missing piece.
It's a missing piece, and Kurang did not reference that missing piece yet. But Ami Bensouda alluded to that. She alluded to that in the letter. Well, not Ami Bensouda's lawyers alluded to that Kurang had made some sort of disparaging comments on the lead counsel.
Oh.
And that the lead counsel said, based on those comments, which have some sort of ramifications or dents on her integrity, she does not feel that she could continue to work with Kurang. She said that clearly.
What I know.
But what we have not seen is what was it that Kurang said. Because the letter, the rebuttal of Kurang to the chair, squarely dealt with the commissioners. He didn't mention anything about the lead counsel. I looked for it. I combed through that letter 2-3 times to see if I could see a mention of the lead counsel. It wasn't there. So he addressed squarely the commissioners. But we both know
there was one thing that happened. Let me bring you to speed on that. There was one thing that happened when Amadou Samba came to the commission. he did mention that there was this document that was signed by or probably prepared by Ami Bensouda. So at one point, Kurang actually suggested that Ami Bensouda need to excuse herself from the commission in one way or another, need to actually come to the commission to testify because in one way or another, she was involved in some of the Jammeh's dealings. Now, this is not in any of these letters, but this was one thing that Kurang had said during the period of the commission. Now, probably that could be a comment that Amisha Bensouda is not happy with, but that we cannot justify even though Kurang had said it.
No.
But now, the whole point is that I don't understand if Kurang made statements against Ami Bensouda. Is that the reason why Ami Bensouda told Batambedu, I can no longer work with this person? Or there is something deeper than we are actually seeing in the surface? Because Kurang's document explicitly was to the commissioners, and that establishes why the commissioners would say we can no longer work with him. But up till now, we do not know why Ami Bensouda would say to Batambedu that she can no longer work with Kurang. So that aspect of it, or that part of it, I'm still not very clear what really happened, underground between, Kurang and Ami Bensouda. But my own belief is that to date and to death, I still believe that Ami Bensouda was not the right authority or right person. She should have excused herself when it comes to commissions of inquiries about Yahya Jammeh, because Ami Bensouda was one of those who developed the decrees that, removed democracy in the Gambia, that brought about, a military rule in the Gambia.
Sorry, my boss.
Now, if there is another part of it, Ami Bensouda actually made some document that has to do with land transfers and transactions, or probably, business dealings that have to do with Jammeh. So one time Ami Bensouda was an ally of Jammeh, at another time Ami Bensouda was more or less, in the, opposite side of Jammeh. So that means he has had, both a better sweet relationship with Jammeh. One time a minister of Jammeh, another time a sacked minister of Jammeh. In that aspect, I would consider that if I were her, I would say, oh, I'm not the person to really investigate Yahya Jammeh, because I worked with this person, and at one point he fired me. No matter how impartial and independent I am, I think I am a conflicted party in the eyes of the public. Therefore, I will not. So this is the aspect that I keep saying that Ami Bensouda was not the right authority to do so. It's not really in defense of Kurang or in against Ami Bensouda. But my personal conscience gives me the fact that Melville is my personal friend. If you have any issues with him, I will not be impartial. I will rather excuse myself. Either we had a good relationship and later turned bad, either good or bad. Either of these two can influence what I think about a particular person. So therefore, she was not the right authority whatsoever to actually, go about investigating Jammeh. Because in one way or another, that's a conflicted party. I'm not saying she's conflicted in the sales or in the, in the activities within the commission, but then her relationship with Jammeh already, in my case, is a conflict. Now, again,
but I don't agree to that. I mean,
why do you disagree?
As a lawyer, I don't agree to that. I mean, just because she served served in Jammeh's cabinet, you need to look at the mandate of the commission, because that's what we have. That's what we're hammering home. The mandate.
What's the mandate of the commission?
The mandate of the commission was to look at the financial dealings of President Jammeh and his close associates. Ami Bensouda, by serving as Minister of Justice and Attorney General, could not have had any financial dealings with Jammeh. For example, Mama Singate was never called in the Janneh Commission to offer any words of or anything with regards to her financial dealing. She was Minister of Justice, serving longer than Ami Bensouda. Now,
transactions dealing with the sales of hotels where documents prepared.
No. You're conflicting. No. You're asking me as a lawyer to help you. You're conflicting that.
Go ahead.
You're totally lost in that, because remember, she did not act for Jammeh. As a lawyer, she could have acted for people that were buying or selling to Jammeh. That is her right as a legal counsel to do. She has every right to do that. What I agree with you absolutely, however, is where those issues come into question, then she must recuse herself from those matters. So for example, when they mentioned the issue about the Amadou Samba thing, because I think you reposted it, and I saw, go get your jacket and your shoes quick. I saw you go get your jacket. Get your jacket. You don't need to cry. Just go get your jacket, Jaden. Go get your jacket.
I would rather wait for him to finish up his, statements. Most times I rather just wait to have a complete statement than actually having a viewpoint. But what I'm trying to say in short is that, in one way or another, either for Jammeh or against Jammeh, Ami Bensouda was involved in the financial dealings that have, connections to Yaya Jammeh. And you cannot tell me that during the junta's period of 1994, those who serve as state ministers do not have any financial dealings that have to do with Jammeh. Now, if you tell us that Jammeh is really bad and then everything that he got was gotten, illegally, including all the monies he would have got is all illegal, is all fraudulent, is all, ill-gotten wealth. But he served as a minister for this person, and then your wealth is legal, but his wealth is illegal. That doesn't make much of a sense.
No. But you're wrong in that premise.
Wait, let me finish. I was waiting for you to be back.
No, but I was talking. I was talking.
Yeah, but
no.
I was quiet to wait for you to come back. But
no, that one. I put my life down.
Everything Jammeh got is illegal.
No. I put my life down for that. That one, it doesn't even make sense. Let me tell you, every Gambian, well, not every Gambian, but so many Gambians had worked with Jammeh.
Okay.
In different capacities.
Right.
So many ministers, not just the AG. There were ministers of finance. There were ministers of trade. There were people who had direct responsibility over financial matters as cabinet ministers. Just because she served as AG does not mean she's got
not only AG, because some of the financial transactions dealing with transfers of hotels here and there.
No. Omar, you're completely missing the point.
Bensouda's name was mentioned in the commission.
Her name was not mentioned as AG. Her name was mentioned as a legal practitioner.
I'm looking at it from both sides.
No. But listen, no. But that's not what you said initially. What you said initially was somebody that worked with Jammeh as an agent. I'm saying that's a non-starter.
I did not stop there, Melville.
No, okay, no.
You either listen to me to complete.
No.
You either listen to me to complete.
No, I did.
Or you actually have half of it and then deal with the half of it.
But I can agree.
What I said is, Bensouda, as an individual, worked with Yaya Jammeh.
No, but that shouldn't come into. Your analysis.
It will make sense to me, because if Yaya Jammeh fired you and then you are bitter about that, and then you come to the commission to actually investigate Yaya Jammeh, you can bring back those emotions because he fired you. It's not about you being in a financial transaction with him, but of course the emotional stress you would have gotten from the person firing you as his minister could actually play out in the activities of the commission. So either legally you accept or disapprove that. I am putting to you that emotionally or whatsoever, by definition of human beings and how we actually play out in our activities, if somebody fires me as a minister and I'm now put there to investigate him, I might not be impartial. Of course, that is quite subjective. It depends on who the person is and what you want to do. But if it were me, I would excuse myself on the fact that this is a person I work for, and at one point he fired me. I had a bittersweet relationship with this person. Therefore, I might not be impartial. That does not mean that I am guilty of any financial activities during his regime. But secondly, her name appeared in the commission regarding a particular sales business. That means she was either a counsel for or against somebody or whatever, that actually did some financial transactions for Amadou Samba and the parties involved. So that means this is a person, in my view, cannot, in my view, be the lead counsel for Yaya Jammeh in a matters that relates to investigating Yaya Jammeh, because in one way or another, she might have that animosity against Jammeh for either firing her or probably from their previous bittersweet relationship that could influence some of her activity or actions. Again, when Amadou Samba mentioned that you did these particular documents that probably give legitimacy to some of the actions of Jammeh, then in one way or another, she's got to take responsibility for that. But if you think that, of course, because being AG does not give her that, but of course, being AG is not what we're talking about. Being AG is one point of being appointed and of course being fired. Do you think the ministers that Barrow had fired are still happy with him? Other people went to join opposition parties because they are not happy because they are being fired. So that means if you ask those people today to investigate Barrow, you think they will do an impartial investigation on Barrow? Evidently no. And Batambe justify this by telling us that they picked Alaji Mamadi Kurang because he had no political connections to any political party whatsoever, and he is not a conflicted party. But of course, somebody who worked with Jammeh and of course at one point got fired by Jammeh, you still tell me this person is very non-partisan and completely had no issues whatsoever, and there is no question on her potential biases. No, I wouldn't agree to that.
Okay.
I would suggest that this person would have, in one way or another, either, positive or negative towards this particular person. That's my point. I'm not saying because he's just edgy, but Melville, if you pick me as a minister, you're president, and you fired me, I might have that animosity towards you.
See,
And if I am choosing to lead a commission against you, then something I would either excuse myself for best practice, or I pick the job and still have the public saying, "Oh, that is not the best person for the job."
For the purpose,
That's my
let me
point.
say this, for the purpose of this discussion, yeah, I'm going to respond to you and then we can move on, because I don't want us to do the back and forth, because I vehemently don't agree. This is the first time I'm telling you I don't agree, and I will never agree. Because because what you're saying is subjective. Now you have qualified it to say that she might be bitter against the president, which again is subjective, right? That is subjective.
Is it a possibility or not?
Hang on. It is subjective. Now, listen, let me just explain. Initially, when you made mention of Ami Bensouda serving as Minister of Justice for Janneh, you did say what you said, and we can go back on the records of this live. You did say that she must have done things that have got financial implications, and that was what I said I disagreed with. I'm
not sure I said that.
Oh, you did, my brother, you did, and that is what I disagreed with. Now, for example, let's do a typical comparative analysis. Ami Bensouda served under Janneh and she was fired. Justice Amina Saho served under Janneh. She was arrested and detained and taken to prison. But she sat and adjudicated over a matter of Janneh's assets and refused to grant permission to the Minister of Justice or the Ministry of Justice to unfreeze Janneh's assets. She stuck to the law, applied the law without malice, without emotions, with anything. And this was a person, as Master of the High Court, Justice Amina Saho was locked up by Yahya Jammeh and taken to Mile 2 prison. This was not just a person that was fired. This was a person that was detained. But when she was dispensing justice, she didn't look at Jammeh. She didn't look at the Ministry of Justice. She didn't look at the President. Justice Amina Saho was appointed by the President at the recommendation of the Judicial Service Council. The President can fire Justice Amina Saho. We have seen how Jammeh fired judges. Now, she dispensed justice regardless of all of that. What you're saying, the basis of what you're saying, I'm not going back, I'm not going to the issues of Ami Bensouda as a legal practitioner or the boards she sat. No, I'll leave that. I'm just squarely dealing with one instant, right? Now, Justice Saho could have said that she can never sit, or she wouldn't sit on any matters that she's adjudicating on the Jammeh.
Which will be
then there would be
fair.
Listen, no, hang on, let me make my point, Omar. I do not agree with that, absolutely, because that is subjective. You cannot base that squarely on anything. People are different. She has the right, if she feels she cannot sit under such, she cannot serve as lead counsel, she has the right to say, okay, I cannot. But if she feels that she is in a position to dispense whatever she's doing in a very equitable and fair way, she has the right to do that. Now, the other point is, this is a fact-finding mission. Ami Bensouda cannot manufacture facts. Ami Bensouda cannot manufacture the law. Ami Bensouda can only look at the facts, look at the law, and make a recommendation. In fact, it was worse. It is Justice Amina Saho that can give an interpretation to the law because she's a judge. Huh? Yes, go, Pipi. Go on, go, Pipi. You just want to bother me. Go, Pipi. Go, Pipi. Good boy. Go, Pipi.
Today's your turn, right?
Go on, Jane. Go on. Go on. Good boy. So basically, it is Justice Saho that could have given a different interpretation, and that would have been within her mandate. It would have been within her right. It would have been for someone else to go and appeal. She can interpret the law any way she wants.
That's a very good example.
Yeah.
Take JT.
No,
JT as a high court
no,
role, as
no,
a sample, who is
no.
another Jammeh's
Hang on,
victim
hang on,
and
hang on.
who
You see
did
me?
the
You see,
terrible job.
no,
So that means one
let
person
me
can choose to be
finish.
honest and
You
another
said you
person
wanted
can
to
choose
make
to
your
use
point.
animosity.
You said you wanted to make your point, and I allowed you to make your
Okay,
point.
go ahead.
Allow me to make my point.
Go ahead.
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
going
Go
to
ahead.
talk about Jaita now. I'm squarely
Don't give me
dealing
one
with this.
example.
Okay.
Give me comparative
No,
examples
no.
of victims of
I'm
Jammeh who are
giving
then
you an
adjudicated in
example
his
to
history.
make my point, and then after you could bring somebody else.
All
But
right, go ahead.
the point I'm trying to make is, if Abi Bensouda is not going to or should not sit or should not be lead counsel, it would be on the basis, it would never ever be on the basis of her being Minister of Justice or AG. It would be on the basis of other dealings that she has. So for example, let's say the commission was looking into activities of NAWEC, which I believe, I'm not too sure, I believe Ami Bensouda probably sat at the, the NAWEC board or something. I don't know. I don't have this fact. I'll have to get it solidly right. Yeah. Then it would be inappropriate for Ami Bensouda to look into those activities. Okay?
Yeah.
It would be inappropriate. But what Ami Bensouda, because this is not a court of law, it's a fact-finding mission, Ami Bensouda is only armed with the facts. So for example, Ami Bensouda cannot come and say Jammeh gave Omar Malmo $20,000 to go and buy him a cow. You know why? It is not factual. She cannot manufacture it.
Now, who was supposed to guide the commission on its mandate? Because I also do not understand the role of the lead counsel there. Is it Suarata Janneh who is supposed to tell the commission that, no, this is our mandate and we got to stop there? And Ami, as a seasoned lawyer, could she also advise them that, no, you don't have the right as the lead counsel, as the lead counsel, as in the lead lawyer there, to tell them that, no, you don't have the right to sell. Now, what I'm trying to say is, in a way or another, you talked about whatever, I forgot, JJ or something. I don't know what the last name of Amina is, but of course, this is a victim of Jammeh, whose Jammeh's case were brought to her, and she did justice to it without any whatever. That I agree. But there are also other examples of people who actually adjudicated in matters related to Jammeh, who were victims of Jammeh and decided to inject their emotions and animosities. We have also seen that in the Gambia. So where there are possibilities of questioning one's credibility, I would have excused myself. I did not say that Ami doing that is wrong, but of course I questioned it on the basis that this is a person who served there. That is also my right. But she has the right, like you said, to serve there if she believes he's going to be impartial.
Yeah.
Now come to that impartiality. The commission went on to sell Jammeh's asset when it did not have the mandate. Now, people like us who would have questions on why Ami Bensouda was there could now raise those questions that, of course, you were there. Now this commission did all of these wrongs. So Janneh and his people should have known that they
that would be absolutely misplaced, because Ami Bensouda is just a lead counsel. Ami Bensouda is not a commissioner. Ami Bensouda is not the chair of the commission. Ami Bensouda couldn't have made those orders.
But she could have also advised them.
Well, I don't.
Or she had no advisory
role. She can, but that's an advisory role. Who has authority? No, but no, Omar, no. Now you're sounding like these people that say that, everything, you're sounding like Dr. Cisse all of a sudden, because now you're saying that, this was UDP, that was that. Listen, the fact is, you have an authority. You have an authority. Surah Hatta, as the chair, the commissioners had the authority. Now, let's say even Ami Bensouda advised them. They had a discretion to either accept or not. It's like you say. It's like you saying now, okay, all those the Manding King, go and ask UDP. Who is the authority here?
No. That's classically wrong. That does. What I'm saying. I'm not saying that Ami bears responsibility individually or whatsoever. What I'm trying to tell you is that the commission in its entirety failed in its mandate, and that cannot exclude Ami Bensouda. And
we're not saying. But I'm not saying. Listen, my argument is not excluding her for anything. Right. My argument was squarely dealing with that particular part. In fact, I did say to you that I agree with the other part, like, where she has got issues, stuff that she dealt with regards to her being a legal practitioner or stuff like that. My main bone of contention was the fact that she couldn't sit because she was Minister of Justice and AG. That's all. That was the only only part. It's only
I did,
limited to
I
that.
did, I didn't say she couldn't. I basically said I
No,
have a problem with
I
her
never
sitting
said
there.
you
I
said
would
you
have
couldn't. You
excused myself.
said she was conflicted in that area, and I say that is subjective. That everybody else could have been. I'm sure everybody had some sort of issue with Janneh that sat in those commissions. I'm sure everybody had issues with Janneh that sat that would sit in courts, from the court clerk to anybody. Anybody can say they have issues with Janneh. But that is why when you're dispensing justice, that is where credibility and integrity comes into play. I could have something against you. I remember one time you made me drive around town in Gambia for nothing. I could have that. You know, those things are subjective. You
No,
don't bring,
but
you know.
this is what I'm telling you, because those subjectivities exist. For instance, now if there is an issue about me and then you said something, what would people say? That's his boy. This exists, and this is a reality. This is a fact you
So
cannot dismiss.
we're not
But
saying
even
no.
if you were a judge,
But the
Melville,
thing
let's be
is,
honest here. If you are a judge and matters about me came up, and then I am supposed to face justice, there are two things. You take the case on the pretext that, you know what, I'm going to do justice to this. But of course, other people could query that, no, we don't think this is the right person to do it because he's his friend. When that friendship might not have influenced whatever you will do there, but of course, it's an established
yes,
fact that you are my friend.
but you and I as professionals cannot begin to play to the gallery. I don't care what people say. You know me. This is how I've always been. I don't give a hoot about what people say. It is what is right. It is what my conscience tells me. If they bring you before me and you are my friend, if I cannot sit over that case to adjudicate it fairly and squarely, I would recuse myself. I will go to the side. I will give you my advice. I'll give you legal advice. I'll give you legal rap. But once I do decide to sit over that, I will preside over it fairly and squarely. And I don't give a hoot whoever thinks that this is his friend and that's why he came to that conclusion.
You will adjudicate it fairly and squarely. I mean, Bensouda could have done that with the entire commission, her and the commission. But the commission and her altogether did not do that.
Well, that is
So it's still a valid
not. But that is a subject. That is a
person who had a
different.
bittersweet relationship,
Yeah, but that is a
and in one way or
different
another was
subject for
involved
me.
in signing documents that have to do. But then we
Yeah,
get
because
out
we're
of
just
that.
digressing,
We
and
got to
that is
proceed.
something that we could agree on another time. But I just feel just because she served as Minister of Justice does not mean that she couldn't sit in that commission.
That means that Batambedu's justification of Alaji Kurang's appointment is also nothing that one can justify.
But that's rubbish. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
But you and I talked about this personally. We know that doesn't make no sense.
Would you also agree that okay, it's normal then they have Alaji Sedi Barrow as Jammeh's lead investigator at the TRRC, who actually was.
You see, okay, let me tell you what is the difference. I'll give you the subject matter difference.
Right.
Alaji Barrow, Sedi Barrow, tried to overthrow the government of Yahya Jammeh. Now, in whatever way you saw it, it was a legitimate government. That's what we believe. Until it is proven otherwise in a court of law that his government was not legitimate. And then the TOR of the TRRC is looking into the atrocities of Jammeh, which would include that particular moment that had to deal with the December 30th. Right. So there's a direct nexus to it. If for example, the TOR of the Janneh Commission was to look at the let's say I don't know what you call it, maybe abuse of office of the civil service, or there's something like that, then Ami Bensouda has a direct nexus to it, because her firing or Jammeh firing her as Minister of Justice could probably not have been justified. And that would have a direct subject matter nexus to the issue at hand. So that is the distinction. So for example, the lead counsel, SFR worked under Jammeh at the Ministry of Justice. SFR was seconded to the United Nations or to the permanent mission in New York by Jammeh's government. But the distinction between SFR and Alaji Sedi Barrow is a subject matter distinction under the TOR of the TRRC. SFR couldn't have found himself within the mandate of atrocities on Janneh. Whilst Alhaji Sedi, for me, to be honest, I mean, I respect the guy, I like his writing, I read his stuff, couldn't have served in that particular position where he would have been unbiased. Because his very actions speak to the core of whatever has transpired. And that alone, I feel, you understand, has some sort of credibility issue with the TRRC.
Let's put that point aside, and we get on. I think there is still a whole lot to be discussed on this matter.
Yeah, but let's continue. Let's continue with we're doing the letter. Let's continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So what was it? Because I had other points in relation to the letter. Again, what I don't understand now is now that Alaji had, published his rebuttal, and this rebuttal was not just immediate, it was done in 2018 or whatsoever. And then explicitly, I could understand in my own view, that might be biased, that I mean, Ben Shuda mentioning those particular things in there is to actually inform the public of things that, she thinks or she believes Kurang would have done wrong. But Kurang had reported that. And of course, made counter claims on the commissioners that actually had questioned their conscience. I want us to put Batambedu in the middle of all of this. Here are the commissioners. Here is the office of the president. Here is the lead counsel. And here is Alaji Mamadi Kurang. Now, Mamadi Kurang questioned some of the things that the commissioners were doing while rebutting the allegations against them. And then no further action was taken if that is right. That means they accepted that whatever Kurang said in his rebuttals were good enough that they could not say anything against him. But again, that animosity existing, Kurang equally told Office of the President, stop interfering in the activities of the Commission. Evidently, maybe the Office of the President would not like that. Again, the Minister of Justice, having been copied in all of these communications, said there exists an animosity, which we all know now, that there exists animosity between the commissioners and Kurang. That means there was no level play field within the commission or in terms of, working cordially. So the working relationship has actually turned sour. Now, they cannot keep all of these people in there. But Kurang was against the commissioners for one thing or another, or for a query they made against him. Kurang actually questioned political interference from the office of the president. Would we say that Kurang was fairly removed from the commission, or was actually based on prejudice, or actually something that they felt that is an easy way to just remove Kurang and keep the commissioners? There are justifications as per what Batambedu said. Oh, we rather lose Kurang than lose all these commissioners and the lead counsel. I don't think
they would have ever lost the commissioners. They were making so much money, they had so much, but they were not going nowhere, boy.
But let's just give the guy the benefit of the doubt for what, because my question will come at the end of it, and then you will understand where this guy was actually making all of this. Now, Kurang questioned Office of the President, questioned the commissioners, and then wrote to the Office of the President to actually stop interfering. Now, Batambedu claimed that why didn't Kurang write to him? And evidently, Kurang was not appointed by Batambedu. Even though Batambedu might have recommended for his appointment, he was appointed by the President and should have been answerable to just the President. So there was nothing legally wrong or whatsoever in terms of professional work to write to the President who appointed him instead of writing to Batambedu.
But he didn't write to Batambedu?
No. Batambedu said Kurang did not write to him. Instead, he wrote to the Office of the President.
And copied him. But the Office of Janneh was the appointing authority. Batambedu never appointed
Exactly.
Kurang.
Now the point is, where did Batambedu base his decision and recommendation to the President to remove Kurang? This is where I have a problem with, and I don't have answers to. After now understanding all of these animosities happening and all these letters and counter letters against each other, why did Ba feel that it's Kurang that's got to go?
Well, he said it. He said what he felt. Whether it's justified or not, I mean,
the commissioners could not work with him.
Yes, that's what he said.
Now do you think that is fair to Kurang?
No, obviously not. Obviously not. Obviously not, but that's what he said. That's what he said. Yeah.
So,
yes, that's what he
Kurang
said.
coming.
But you know what? You asked the question that I so wanted to deal with, but we kind of
go ahead. Go ahead.
The bit about the National Assembly.
Yes. Yeah.
about
We
the
did not answer that part, and we got
yeah,
into Ami Bensouda's one.
because I
Yes,
think that's
come on.
very that's
was the
key.
question.
That's key.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's key. Now, you see, I want to read something I was writing. It's an article I just drafted it. Let me see if I could find it. Yes, I've just drafted it, but I was gonna wait for a while because okay. So under Gambian law, commissioners appointed to a commission of inquiry, such as the Janneh Commission, are not subject to recall or personal legal liability for their official actions. Your jacket. Of course,
We are done.
so that's why I'm keeping this article. I've already done. I think I'm gonna release it on Tuesday. Monday they say it's public holiday, so it's gonna come on Tuesday. But let me read it. Let me just give you snippets of it. It says on the Gambian law, commissioners appointed to a commission of inquiry, such as the Janneh Commission, are not subject to recall or personal legal liability for their official actions. Their role is to investigate and make recommendations. They do not possess adjudicatory powers.
Why are we talking about this then?
The 1997 Constitution of the Gambia, specifically Section 2021, establishes that a commission of inquiry is an investigative body tasked with fact-finding and making recommendations. It does not have the authority to render binding decisions akin to a court of law, and this was also affirmed by case law by the Court of Appeal in the case of M.A. Karafi and Sons Limited versus Attorney General, where Justice Omar M.M. stated, a commission of inquiry does not and legally cannot make a judgment. In other words, a commission of inquiry cannot legally render a binding decision which may be executed or enforced as if it were judgment or an order. Furthermore, Section 2042 of the Constitution provides that individuals adversely affected by a commission's finding have the right to appeal at the Court of Appeal, which I just told you, treating the findings as if they were court judgments. The mechanism ensures that any grievances are addressed through the judicial system, not by holding commissioners personally accountable.
My goodness, I am weak, man.
So basically, you remember Batambedu said that Batambedu in his For the People by the People show mentioned a part where he said, I think one of the panelists asked him, so they said, how can I go back to the commission? We couldn't have gone back to the commission to correct this because the commission is already functionless. You remember he said that?
Yeah.
And that is factual. So if you realize, yes, your jacket is in there. Okay, it's upstairs. So even though you realize that, I keep saying, but why are we're not hearing from the commission? It's because they know they don't owe anybody an answer for any work done within the life of the commission. It is only if you can establish that work done was not done in good faith and done in bad faith, and there was a criminal sort of enterprise part, that whatever you might call it. So to be honest, really now you're looking at the
and even with that, you cannot establish an inquiry to them. You can only go to court.
Yes, you cannot. You cannot. Even the court. Listen, even the court does not have the power to call the commissioners to testify on actions they did whilst in the commission subsists. So you see, nobody's talking about this because everybody's assuring the public that the national they're gonna do it. Yeah. Are they gonna talk to these commissioners? They're not gonna talk to them. They have no right to approach them.
What are they going to do then?
They're gonna. It's an academic exercise. They'll come back and tell you this and this and this. What can you do about it? Nothing. I told people.
This regime has messed up our country beyond.
I will.
That means there is nothing we can do about it.
I'm gonna write this article. It's gonna come.
My goodness.
It's gonna come on Tuesday. Yes, babe.
Allah.
Omar, talk. Let me just find this jacket for this boy. 1 second.
No, man, guy, you've frozen me, man. I don't even know what to say no more. knowing fully well that, you know, the National Assembly, whatever committee that is set up, cannot even call any of these commissioners. So what exactly are
But
we doing?
let
We
me
are going on a
give you an example. It's like a
full-time
judge. It's
activity.
like a judge, Omar. It's like a judge. Let me give you. It's like a judge.
How
A
can you call
judge in the
a judge?
you don't
Exactly. That makes perfect
call a
sense,
judge back
actually.
to answer on his judgment,
Oh
regardless
my
if
goodness. Either
regardless
it's
if he
right or
look
wrong.
regardless if he looks at you and say, you know what, Omar, your ugly head, that's why I'm sentencing you. You can
Oh
appeal,
my
appeal, but you will never call that judge back to answer to anything that he has done whilst in office.
Well, why wasting time about all of? But of course, it's important that this came today after all these rebuttals and counter rebuttals came out. Now it's even clearer that, you know, even the National Assembly committee they're putting up is just a futile venture that the government is getting into and try to portray that, oh, we are really serious about doing something. You're serious about what you don't even have any legal mandate to do. So what exactly are you serious about? Oh my goodness. And the entire cabinet feel, oh, we are going to let the National Assembly committee to do this here and there, or auditors to do it. But even if auditors find out something or another, what is the government going to do? The government is going to pay the money? No. Are they going to tell the buyers to bring back the items they bought? No. What exactly is to happen is to kick out Barrow and his government. That is the only way out, because we will not get these assets back. They will not bring about any justice to it. It only speaks to the fact that this is a government that is completely corrupt beyond repairable, and it's not a government, worth voting for in the Gambia. Because at this point in time, there is nothing we can do about all of this. Anyway, that's my political whatever. You give us the legal whatever, but at the end of the day, I believe that this is not a government we definitely need to keep. After all of these things, oh my goodness, these folks already enriched themselves out of the assets. Them, you know, and including even the office of the president and even the presidency owning assets from Jammeh, because they know that these commissioners can never be brought to question. And therefore, they allowed the commission to go about an illegality, to go about selling these assets, and then they turn around to be the buyers of these assets because they know someday, in one way or another, they can never be called back. So it's the Gambia that lost. So at the end of the day, affair become Janneh, bro. And lawyers are in the Gambia, they know this. They just look at us ranting. At the end of the day, they know what. So you people know what
and the
exactly the
government, I
facts are.
think the government know, they're aware that nobody's going to call these commissioners to say whatever. Have you seen everything that has been going on, all the noise? Has any one single member of the commission except Kurang come out to say and offer garments anywhere? They don't. They're not obligated to by law. They know that. We can bring the sky down. We can say whatever we want to say. Who are we going to? Listen, in fact, in law, the commission does not even exist anymore. So when we're referring to Janneh Commission, it's past tense. Where are you going? To what commission? They don't exist anymore. They don't exist anymore. It's like your fire.
No, my fire is dead, man. You just put up my fire, man. I'm like, you know what? What exactly are we doing about this? There is nothing that is going to come out of this. So what's the point? You know, folks thinking they can call lead counsel, they can call the
Are
commissioners
they
to come.
joking? Are they joking? They don't know what the law states.
Oh my goodness.
Call who? Call who? You see, that's why I said, I said this the other day when we were talking. I said, the National Assembly don't even know and understand their powers and their mandate. Because if they knew, it wouldn't take a gala protest for them to set up a select committee.
This one gave me headache. Let's
put aside. They could have done that ages ago. But what they also don't know, and that's why I think they need some sort of legal advice for that committee, because what they don't know, maybe they feel, speaking to them, they thought they could just go to the commission and start asking them questions. No, all you can rely on is the volume of report that the commission said. That's all they can rely on.
Everybody in the comments are frozen. This is like a total shutdown. But anyway, that part really we put that aside. Volume 4 is missing.
Missing from who? The commission. I do not know. Now listen, from the commission,
from the Ministry of Justice.
Again, because there is no commission. You see, I didn't want to say this. I wanted my article to hit on Tuesday, but let me say this: because there's no commission, right? The government can say anything and blame it on the commission. Who's coming to answer you? There's no commission. It don't exist. Make a
And
talk
that's
aku.
why, and that is
Commission don't
why,
die, boy. Commission, it don't die.
is that probably why Dr. Cisse is saying the commission did a terrible job because the
Because
commission will never come
you
out?
see, listen, do you notice that nobody is calling the name of Batambedu? He's alive. He's not dead. Why didn't Dr. Cisse blame Batambedu? Why? Because
But
because
government
because
can hold Batambedu
Batambedu.
accountable.
No. But why is Dr. Cisse not holding Batambedu
Because
accountable?
that will now amount to government doing a bad
No,
job.
because Batambedu. Not only that, because Batambedu is alive, he will answer. He will say he will correct him. But he can refer to the Janneh Commission because the Janneh Commission it does not exist. It has been interred. It's buried. It is dead. Who is the Janneh Commission? Go and look at the law. Who is the Janneh Commission?
Oh my goodness. Ah. Okay. That's very interesting. Again.
So you can blame everything on the Janneh Commission. You can now say, oh, they didn't submit this, they didn't submit that, they didn't submit that. Who is going to answer for the Janneh Commission? Nobody. Did you see Ami Bensouda come out to say that? Oh, but the Janneh Commission, well, we submitted this. Did you see them say that?
No. She's not
Did you
even
see?
talking about the commission.
Did you
She's
see
talking
Suda?
about somebody trying to say things about her.
Because Ami Bensouda is a lawyer and she knows what her mandate is, and she knew when the commission ceased to exist.
But she equally knew that the commission did not have the right to sell at the time they were selling, and as a top lawyer, did not really put that to the commission. Nobody. Sa internet bi mo ngi freeze de. Ngal mo mel noonu. Or you're getting a call, probably. Not the internet, I suppose. Probably just getting a call. Yeah, the fact is these people played with us, evidently or clearly they know what they were doing. They know they will not be answerable to any of their legal or illegal actions, and went ahead to, kind of, pacho aleli reumi, and then they know nobody's going to ask them legally. They kind of, played by the book, and nobody asked them when we were supposed to ask them. And then now that we do not have any right to ask them and that we are just complaining out here, what exactly can we do now? So I think probably this will be the last time I will put my, second in this particular matter, knowing fully well that the Gambia lost. And it's better to focus our energies on how to put out Barrow and his corrupt government, because these people played us, so badly. Gambia need to understand that these folks don't care about the well-being of this country, and they never actually meant well from the beginning. The likes of Batambedu, who greedily came into government to loot the country in pretext that Jammeh was a bad person, whereas they were good, and all of a sudden they turned out to be the worst one can imagine when it comes to financial manipulations and theft of our national resources. So I think the Gambian people need to understand that this government cannot and will not in any way, bring about the meaningful, developments that we seek, and of course the financial discipline. It's been, very much financially indisciplined from the get-go and all the way now that they actually, kind of dilly-dally around the laws to actually, in one way or another, steal from the public. And that's exactly what we have seen in this commission. And, first we thought Kurang would have acted, illegally by the sales, but evidently either he did or did not. We know that the commission actually established an interim order on the sales of the vehicles. And in that order, they actually put that, the secretary was going to supervise the sales. So that means the commission gave him the powers to do so when the commission did not have the mandate to give such powers. So collectively, they all bear the responsibility, but individually, I don't think I can hold him a lot into account on that matter. But in as much as individually one might try to excuse him, he bears an individual responsibility to also know that this order that the commission is giving me, is it legal or illegal? But of course, this is not... you don't give an excuse on the basis that they are not legal personnel or whatever, but then they ought to probably know better what their TOR or mandate is. But that means the commission actually played us bad, and fully knowing that they might not be questionable to whatever their actions or omissions were. when matters of this actually arises. But I think the government of the Gambia, in one way or another, can hold Batambedu accountable for all the actions, because Batambedu, being the chief legal advisor to the president, should have advised government that what the commission was doing is wrong, which he failed to do. Batambedu as well brought in his girlfriend's company to give them all the millions, which is actually, abuse of office and conflict of interest. And as well, went about, firing Kurang in a way that is quite fraudulent in my view. So in a way, in as much as we cannot hold the commissioners and the commission accountable, we can basically hold the former justice minister accountable for all of the wrongdoings that were happening in the commission under his preview. And as the person who is supposed to be the chief legal advisor to the president on matters related to the commission. Again, another thing would be missing volumes. And all of these questions go back to Batambedu. Did you have a call or something? I can't hear you. You are muted. You had a call before, and then now it muted you. So I think we've spent enough time on this, and we might have to cut it off simply because we can't hear Melville from the other side of the divide. But all of it together, you were telling us that this person is bad, is terrible. At the end of the day, you, the saints, the good boys, turn out to be the worst that this country had ever experienced in governance. So, at the end of the day, you will tell us that this person is bad, and you turn around to be that good Samaritan who turns to be the worst that ever existed in the Gambia. Adama Barrow does not even deserve a next 24 hours in our presidencies, let alone to be giving another term, in 2026. I hold the view that 2 terms are quite enough for any reasonable person who thinks you are reeling a country to its right path, because even leading a group of students for a year is like enough trauma on your head that you will not want to actually continue that job. But then if people are looting the country at an industrial scale, they will continue to desire to remain there, to self-perpetuate, and to put themselves in the footing that, they continue to loot from the masses. So evidently, these are folks in shoot who claim to be very much educated but very manipulative in their behavior and actions in government. And I think in one way or another, about Tambedo, in as much as we think, the National Assembly Select Committee might not have the, ability or the powers to call the commissioners, they definitely need to call Batambedo and probably, those companies that were giving contracts. And if they cannot call Kurang too, then what exactly is going to happen? So we just caught it there until another time, because after Melville making that submission, it's just kind of, kill the fire that, of course, what we are expecting, nothing is going to come out of it. So ladies and gentlemen, till we come your way another time, you all have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your weekend. We can't just be stressing out over people and their corrupt leadership. That's what we got to deal with for the next, 1 year until 2026. We got to deal with this level of corruption that exists in the Gambia, and how malgovernance could definitely do to a country. So it's a lot going on. We still got the case of the cops coming on week in, week out. We should be in court in one of these days. But evidently, the government of Adama Barrow is just what Gambians do not deserve. So thank you all. Hey Mel, you gotta cut it, man. You gotta cut it.